Today is Inauguration Day in our great country, and this past Monday we celebrated Martin Luther King Jr. Day as a country. I wanted to share some of Dr. King's quotes today that I think we'd be wise to remember. The first one is, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. The time is always right to do the right thing." And this last quote that I'll share with you for now reminds me of one reason that I love being involved with Rotary. Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? Now it's with great sadness that I announce the passing of past President Tim Colwell. Tim was larger than life. He was a friend, a mentor, a leader, and a passionate member of our club for 36 years. He was a loving husband, father, and pop. He was so much to so many, and he'll be greatly missed by all who knew him. Now for a special tribute in memory of our fellow Rotarian, Tim Colwell.
Hi.
I know our hearts are aching with the untimely and the unforeseen passing of our beloved friend and past president, Tim Colwell. A brilliant, creative, loving man taken away too soon. It's going to be hard to imagine our Rotary Club without him. It would be impossible to recognize all of the contributions that Tim has made and all of the lives that Tim has touched during his 35 years of membership. As I reflect on his time with us, there was seemingly nothing in our club that he did not have his hand on. He was a Paul Harris Fellow, a benefactor, past president, Club Foundation Fellow, and received the highest award our club can give, the James G. Sade Service Above Self. I'm sure you've already thought about your times and memories of Tim. Perhaps you worked on a committee with him, took a bus trip, went to a convention, to Nicaragua on a water well project, Camp Enterprise. Maybe you might have rang bells with him. But I do hope you were a friend. I hope you knew him. I hope at some time at a Rotary meeting you might have had lunch with him. Because if you did, you knew you were in the presence of someone who loved life. He loved people. Tim was a community activist, a man of great faith, compassionate and sensitive, a loving husband, father, and most recently, Pop. And I'm sure that must have been his favorite name. In Rotary, we make friendships that go far beyond just a lunch meeting or listening to speakers. Our friendships go deep in our bonding through the opportunities of service. And so it was with my friendship with Tim. Tim and I served as back-to-back presidents in 2006-07. We worked closely on the club's Centennial Rotary Plaza and also the Centennial Rotary celebration in 2015. This was a 10-year project. It was huge, that involved many meetings with many Rotarians. In addition to his unwavering dedication to the Centennial Rotary Plaza, Tim and I co-chaired the club's centennial celebration in 2015. Tim said to me, "If you'll plan the party, I'll write our 100-year history." I said, "Tim, do you realize what a huge job that will be?" And he said, "Yes, I know, but people need to know our history." Nothing was too big, too small to get his full attention. And the beautiful hardbound Celebrate 100 Years took him 2 years to record our history, but it was very, very important to him that he did. So in a time of sadness with heavy hearts, I believe that we must remember his creative sense of humor. Tim made us laugh with his queen of cards that he would send out and would arrive on our birthdays and on our anniversaries. His humor and stories of his Aunt Linda from Livermore, Iowa, and the beloved Drake Bulldogs. His recognizable notes in bold print with his bold blue pen, his creative journalistic talents. We've laughed together, we've cried together, and Tim's heart was always visible in everything. Rummaging through our club archives, looking for historical items that he was going to put in our centennial book, he found a song, words that were stapled in the inside of another songbook, and he said that it was a song that members used to close their meetings with. For 50 years, they sang that closing song, and he said he thought they were holding hands. He said, "Do you think this might be a little hokey in this days and time if people held hands and sang this song?" We both laughed and we both admitted it probably would be hokey. But as I was looking through the book the other day, I thought, maybe it's not hokey. Till we meet again, I'll say adieu. I've enjoyed this hour I've spent with you. Hoping next week I may see you again at Rotary. May the hours that we may be apart bring you peace and joy. God bless your heart. So here's my hand, old pal of mine. Till we meet again.
Great tribute to a great guy. Tim, you'll be missed. Services will be held at First United Methodist Church tomorrow, Thursday, January 21st at 2 p.m. or live stream at fumctulsa.org. Information on Tim's services will be sent out to you via email following our meeting today. Now please help me welcome our Rotarian of the day, Barney James. Barney?
Thank you. And now I see Rick. Okay. He had a different moniker and I was hoping that was him. I kept messaging you back. So thank you.
You sent.
All right. I feel much better now. All right. Upon graduating from Bishop Kelly High School, Rick Dixon attended the University of Tulsa, where he contributed to 4 winning football seasons as a defensive back. Once he graduated, he found his dream job in athletic administration, serving a variety of roles before becoming TU's athletic director at the age of 34. Under his 4-year tenureship at TU, the football team gave birth to the Freedom Bowl in 1991, and the basketball team saw success reaching the Sweet 16 under their new coach, Tubby Smith, whom Rick hired. At Washington State University, he oversaw an athletic program that was recognized nationally for their success in gender equity issues. He also raised funds for scholarships, endowments, and then built an indoor practice facility. Washington State also enjoyed its football team's highest ranking ever during his tenure when the 1998 team gained a berth to the Rose Bowl, the school's first in 67 years. Now, while at Tulane, Rick helped rebuild the university and the community of New Orleans following the devastation of Hurricane Katrina. Under his tenureship, the school received 41 conference titles, and they also advanced to postseason play 36 times. Rick's leadership helped the football team triple in season football ticket sales. He also helped rebuild the baseball stadium, raised funds for the football stadium, athletic center, the field house, and numerous other program and facility updates. Once he retired from Tulane, he started his own consulting firm that helps universities in a variety of athletic administration issues. He came back to TU in September of this year to help serve as interim athletic director while the university was undergoing a search for their replacement of the university president and then his replacement as athletic director. please welcome one of the good guys, Rick Dixon.
Thank you, Barney. Well, good afternoon, everyone, fellow Tulsans. First, let me add my condolences to the loss of your two former leaders, and certainly thank all of you for the appropriate recognition of them. It is ironic that on a day like this, with leadership in our country changing and these things, it does make us all take a step back and reflect to really the importance of leadership and the purpose of leadership. I know just listening to Barney and thinking of who is this guy he's describing, because I still think of myself as that young guy from Bishop Kelly High School and first footsteps out here at the University of Tulsa in 1973, and that journey that began out here that, some 45 years later brings you back home. And so much of it, for us that is tied to growing up in this city and living in this city, getting an opportunity to be educated and have a career launched like we did. So, it's been a pretty remarkable journey. It's one that I just a matter of 4 months ago didn't ever envision would bring me back to Tulsa, but fate works in wondrous ways, as we all know. And really, like most things that have happened in my adult life, a lot of that for me goes back to my partner that I met here, Brenda, in 1979, I guess it was, upon returning back from some overseas trips I'd made, and came back and met this young lady. And 40 years and 4 children and now 6 grandchildren later, and a few phone calls that happened this summer, it was Brenda that decided that I needed to come do this. And a lot of it was just for those reasons that I mentioned, is, for both of us, our start, out into our professional lives, family lives, all started and tied right back here to Tulsa, to at 33, 34 years old during that time to be selected as an athletic director at your alma mater was pretty fortuitous, for sure. And now looking back, I couldn't have scripted a better journey for both of us and our families. One of the wonderful things, not only from a career standpoint, but as a father, to raise 4 children in in university life and under the influence of hundreds, even thousands of young men and women across the country, from here at Tulsa to the West Coast and then into New Orleans, and the influence it had on my own children's lives, and look back on that, to think how fortunate we were through all of that. But it goes back to what I mentioned at the top, so much of when you're faced with or blessed to be put in positions like this, it's really a matter of choice of what is our approach, what's our foundation, how do we operate from. And just in listening to your tributes to your two past leaders, the thing that comes to mind for me is the importance, the value of service leadership. And that's really something I've subscribed to, throughout my life, throughout my career. Is, it's one thing to be the person that's given a gavel, that's given authority to make decisions and choose directions. But the real leaders are the ones that surface because of their ability to not only stand in front of the crowd, but to become part of the crowd and to stand behind the crowd and help lift up those you're responsible for to the goals, to the standards that you set out to achieve. So I think again, I appreciate Barney inviting me to do this. I think back to 1994. It was actually my last appearance in front of the downtown Rotary Club, as we had just finished playing in the Sweet 16 with our basketball team. and kind of the start of a couple decades of really high level success for TU basketball. And that was my last chance to ever stand in front of this group. And a little different today, seeing you all in these little squares on my computer. But I remember being downtown and really just the quality of people. I know as I've traveled throughout the country over the last, 30 years, I always speak about my hometown. I speak about the University of Tulsa and just the quality of people that are in this community. And the great thing is, I'm here to tell you again, that hasn't changed in 30 years. It's one of the things that I'm most proud of is where I'm from. I'll always consider myself a Tulsan. I'm a TU alum, as is my wife, Brenda. And, it's just one of those surreal things to be asked to come back home to help. So for a short period, I've reinvented again as Rick Dixon, interim athletic director. And here I am back at my alma mater. It's been a interesting, kind of surreal 4 months. The funniest story I heard at the first home game we finally got to host here on campus after a number of cancellations and reschedules. Unbeknownst to me, they'd put my 34-year-old picture of Rick Dixon in the media guide. So I had person after person come up to me and say, "Who is this guy?" And in my mind, I'm still that guy. So anyway, it's great to be back with all of you. Would tell you it's been a amazing time, throughout the country for all of us. Doesn't matter whether you're in New Orleans, Washington, or here in Tulsa. It's great challenges. Um, the only difference between me and 30 something years ago is now I'm a granddad of 6 grandchildren, which I just got to see last week for the first time through all the holidays. So I'm here back on campus, back in my office. I refer to as the Zoom cave, and ready to get started here. We've got so much activity going on. The only sport we competed in this past fall was our football team. Everything else was delayed and deferred to the spring. So as of this week, 16 of our sports are being tested. They're being evaluated, and will be in position to begin practicing and compete for the next 5 to 6 months. So it ought to be a fun spring. I hope at some point we can invite many of you out to participate and support and see these young men and women. The one beauty of the thing I've got to do over the last 30 plus years is work with young people at a time of their lives where all their goals and dreams are in front of them. It's always been a great privilege of mine to be kind of that person that considered themselves the shepherd that helped them move from one station in life to the next. And what I would tell you, one thing hasn't changed out here at the University of Tulsa. We still have great young people out here representing TU, but also representing the city that they put on their jersey, Tulsa. That's what it says for every jersey, every team, every sport we have, just Tulsa. And it's always been that way. When I came back in late September, I said to all of our coaches and staff, the one thing I know, both from my experience as a student athlete at TU, but also in being in the AD here at the late 80s through the mid 90s, was TU is always at its best when it's joined at the hip with this city. And so if you look back over the years where we've always been at our peak and achieved our greatest heights, has been when the close kind of symbiotic relationship with this university and this city have been joined at the hip together. And so for whatever period of time I'm here, I would anticipate it's another 4, 5, 6 months. And, I hope that I'm able to help achieve that again. There's still great things going on out here at this university. It's been a challenging time. I can tell. I knew it was from afar. It is again today. But I would tell you, having been here on the ground, is the leadership here with our interim president and the team she's put together is working night and day to get TU through this difficult time. They'll come out the other side. I'm confident of that. Just as I've told our people in athletics, we'll do the same. The one thing I've learned since I left Tulsa is I know how to face adversity. I know how to overcome obstacles, and in some instances, even disasters, and about every challenge you can imagine. And we'll get through this, and we will. And but as we come out of it, what I want to see happen is that kind of symbiotic relationship with TU and Tulsa get back to its peak and get back to where us representing not just a campus but a city, as we're out around the country competing and participating in, an arena that I've always been blessed to be part of, college athletics, representing in the way that you should. One of the great reports I got this morning, just coming back in today and hearing from our staff, was we just achieved our highest GPA overall that we have in the last decade. But those are that's the type of young men and women that we attract here, always have, and that will continue. So Barney, thank you for having me. To all of you Rotarians, again, I share and mourn with your loss of your leaders. I know, just like we will as a country, you'll identify others to step forward. You always have, and you'll get through this just like we will out here. I love coming back home. It's one of those things, if any of you get that chance throughout a career or life to do that, and it's a pretty fulfilling and kind of surreal experience. But I'm back, and it's great to be back. I'm looking forward to this first half of 21 being something that we all can share together and move forward, having gone through a pretty remarkable last 9 to 12 months. So I'd entertain any questions.
Yes, Rick, we do have a few questions, and if anybody else would like to put theirs in the chat room, we'll pick those up. First, you briefly touched on it, but for the spring games, these fan attendance, especially the basketball team, is anything going to change? And how do you foresee that coming through the spring?
Well, we hope, we certainly hope that, through the balance of the month, our students just got back to campus this weekend. So everybody's undergoing testing, and we hope, we put a plan in front of the city back in October that was somewhat similar to our football plan that allowed about 10% fan attendance. So we had hoped that we could do that just because of some of the benchmarks and things that happened through the holidays, starting in Thanksgiving on, made it difficult, and they kind of put everything on hold. Just recently, we allowed people that we kind of described by being in the bubble that are being regularly tested, whether it was student athletes, some of the coaches' families, et cetera, that are being tested 3 to 4 times a week. It's a total of about 60 people that have been able to attend the last 2 men and women's games. We're hopeful that as we turn the page in February and go into February, that we'll start to expand on that and give both teams, men and women, a chance to have some support going down the back half of their schedules.
Yes, I know on TV it seems like they're playing a pickup game, doesn't it?
Yeah, very
Yes.
much. Except for the playoffs.
We have a question, kind of a general question about TU's football season next year, but specifically, we've had some success. I say we because I know you. Recent recruits that have come in and some transfers, so things are really looking on like a upswing for the football team. So there are some questions about how next year looks.
I think we're promising. And unlike maybe a lot of programs, we have to stay within the limit we have, which is 85 scholarships. We have this kind of anomaly this year where because of COVID, schools are being allowed to add almost an additional entire class. So you'll see for 1 year, you'll see programs have 110 uh, young men on scholarship, and TU, just because of a lot of the circumstances out here, is maintaining the levels for all our sports of what they always are and will be again in a year. So it's going to be a small class because of that, but there's some real highlights that are occurring in that. And I would tell you, part of that is because a number of young men have opted, they were given the choice to come back and play an additional year across the country. This was, and about all but 3 or 4 of ours have opted to do that. So a lot of this year's team, including the seniors, will be back, coupled with a handful, somewhere in the 6 to 10 range, of incoming young men. So you're pretty much going to see this year's team return intact. The one exception to that, of course, was our award winner, the young man that won the 2 Best Defensive Player of the Year nationally, Zaven Collins. Our quarterback is graduating and going out, and then one other young man at this stage. So it looks like the next couple of years actually for TU should be, comparable to what you've seen. This was a pretty, pretty significant year for them. But I think it reestablished the fact that they were building things the right way. And for the next couple of years, I think you'll continue to see good football.
Okay. We have a couple of questions that, again, you've touched on briefly, but one of them asked about rumors, if you've heard any on conference defections and any change. But I'd like to highlight this. This is particularly interesting for you. Other than Washington State, everywhere you've been, you've had to deal with this. When you were at TU, I believe we were in Missouri Valley, but we played as an independent. And then you took us to the Western Athletic Conference. And then at Tulane, you were at Conference USA and moved to the American Athletic Conference. So this is nothing new to your expertise. You comment on the stability of the conference and where you see TU standing.
I would say to all of you, Tulsa's probably in the most stable conference it's been in since the old days when it was referred to as the Big Six, which was kind of the precursor to the Big Eight. It's today the Big 12. And everything in between was kind of fragile and transitional. But this, for the very reason that any of you that were able to follow our football team this year, we were pretty much on a major network every week throughout the year. It's the same case with our men and women's basketball. It's just the level of exposure now that TU is getting that's more comparable to what you've seen historically in Oklahoma State, and schools like that. So to be on that kind of stage continuously helps. I think it's going to help not only directly to the sports, but I think it helps in terms of the branding and recognition of the entire university is out there. I can't tell you, just being back here, how many people I've heard from out around the country that knew that I did come back because they'd seen our team and playing on a large stage each week. So it's a great chance to showcase not only athletics in the university, but Tulsa. And so in that regard, being part of that American Athletic Conference has been a real boon to TU, to the Tulanes of the world, and that will continue. I think more in terms of the expansion, there's obviously reports out there about the American actually growing and potentially 2 or 3 more national brands that are being discussed out there becoming potentially in addition to the American that would consequently make it kind of a coast to coast organization. And so in each of those instances, if it does occur, I would think most of those will be pretty beneficial to this group going forward, including TU.
Okay, one more question. Well, we have time for several questions, but right now I just have a couple in front of me. This regards recruiting, and I know, especially in the fall sports other than football, the coaches were in the springtime when they typically bring in athletes and recruit, they weren't sure they were going to have seasons. So they were telling their athletes, we do not know what's going on. So
Yeah.
can you comment on what, in retrospect, and then currently, what your coaches are doing to recruit during this pandemic? So
Well,
what are some
all
of
of
the
us,
challenges and what are they doing?
yeah, all of us, and this isn't just to you, but across the country, there's uh, this initiated last March. So not any university is able to bring in, host a student athlete prospect and their families on campus. No official visits have been allowed for the last almost 9 months now. And I venture to say it'll probably stay that way throughout the balance of the spring semester as well, just as a precaution. So everything that's been done is being done like this, been done virtually. And so that's the most significant change that's going on everywhere. Now, that being said, everybody's cautiously operating kind of under the assumption that we'll be uh, functioning in a more familiar environment next fall. I don't think it's safe yet to say normal, but more familiar. And that includes everything, with kids being in person classes, to being on campus, to having attendance at events, things of that nature. So, and that will obviously include the ability for upcoming prospects in the years going forward to experience the more traditional recruiting process, and both unofficially and officially go to campuses, go to camps, things where the recruiting takes place. But for now, it's all occurred virtually. It'll be interesting. I've heard our coaches say that it'll probably in all sports be the most under recruited population across the board, whether it's women's tennis, football, or swimming, regardless of sport, the most under recruited group of young matriculating prospects coming out of high school in history, just because, again, of the conditions.
All right. We've had a question on how has social media contributed to challenges or issues that you have to deal with, either from the criticism that the athletes receive or posts that they make?
Well, that's
That's
always
coming from somebody in the media, by the way.
that's always Barney, as you guys almost experienced it, we had a countdown on getting me on this Zoom on time today. That was a challenge in itself. But yeah, it's, if anything's changed in my tenure as an athletic director, certainly the back half of it, particularly the last 10 years, it's taken on a twist and personality that was not that common, but it wasn't that common for all of us, in our everyday lives. And so it's, a lot like, at the end of the day, it's just another thing that goes in the bucket of things you have to manage. And you try to help educate young people as to being responsible. I know early on, a lot of schools, 7, 8, 9 years ago, began when Twitter first came out, or Instagram, different things, of banning them from utilizing that, which obviously wasn't the answer. I mean, you would have had a better chance of telling them not to breathe than to not use those things. But so again, the emphasis falls back on educating them, understanding the consequences of responsibly and irresponsibly expressing in ways that can be that can harm them, can be harmful to them, not only short term but even through careers and so forth. So it's just another one of the challenges we have in raising young people, right? Just like with our own children. And the same thing occurs because this population, the one thing that hasn't changed is most of them are still 18 to 22. And so the nature of what they deal with, uh, changes, but how you deal with it in terms of educating them, setting boundaries, and helping them learn to responsibly make good choices. That still that's still the priority.
All right. You mentioned earlier about the community relationship and TU and Tulsa being at their peaks, possibly being the biggest challenge you face. What steps need to be taken by both sides to help improve that or take advantage of it?
Barney, and I would say to all of you, for those of you that, unlike Barney, that didn't know me as a young man, the one thing, whether it was innate or nurtured, whatever it would be, was I was always someone that could bring people together, and not always for the best reasons, but I could bring people together. And um, even though I probably didn't have the pedigree at the time, to be such a young guy, hadn't been in the industry, to come in and be handed the keys to a Division I athletic program at that age, the one thing I knew was I knew my alma mater. I knew I knew what the attributes of it were, and I knew my city. And I thought there was so much crossover in common that Tulsa, uh, the independence of people and the grittiness, the uh, just the resolve. I mean, that's the history of this city. I also knew from having been a TU alum, but also an athlete here, that was a lot of the DNA of a TU student athlete. That we weren't going to be the biggest, maybe not always the most decorated, but regardless of sport, you knew you had been in a competition when you lined up against TU. And I think they were kind of reflective of each other in that way. And so one of the things I tried to do during my time first go around here was to re-engage us into the city. And I've said to a lot of these coaches is you need to put yourself out there. This is a city that will embrace you if you put yourself out there and give it the chance. If you look back in history, whether it was the John Coopers, whether it was the Glenn Dobbs for before any of us, whether it was the Tubby Smiths or the Nolan Richardsons or Bill Selfs, or these people that have had great historic success here, did it because they ingrained themselves in this city. And I still believe that and always will. So hopefully if nothing else I leave behind, it's that message for us internally is TU needs to put themselves out there again. There's no question that this city's better off for having a tier one research university in it. It's well over a century years old. If you look across the country, and I've been in higher education for 35 years now, the greatest cities in our country, right at the core of them, are great research universities, whether that's the Bay Area with the Stanford, whether that's the conglomeration of universities in Boston and New York and Chicago. Cities that have great T1 research universities are vibrant cities and cities that continue to live on. So there's a role there. And there's no question that TU will always be better off because of its location and the city it resides in. So anything that continues to nurture and foster that, and athletics, as we all know, is a great gathering place for that to occur. Uh, I mean, it's a no-brainer for that relationship to grow, to prosper, and continue to be nurtured. And it's incumbent on us and the people that will remain here at TU to initiate that and put themselves out there.
All right, I think we have time for one more brief question. So I've got two to ask. I'll let you choose which one of these you'd like. You've been part of facility improvement at almost every university, or at every university, and conference alignments and a lot of those things. So one question would be, if you look back, what do you think is your greatest or biggest achievement, what you're most proud of? The other question is, Your roots in this community go very deep, as you were related to the Ritchie family, and people in this club know Jimmy or Tom or one of many of the Ritchies. So who is your favorite cousin? I'll let you answer either one of those questions.
Wow. That's a no win. That's a no win either way I go, Barney. All the Ritchie families are my favorite. If I said anything less, I will say this. I'm the only non-Ritchie that was invited to my Aunt Catherine's 93rd birthday this fall when I got here. So I feel pretty special in that regard. And no, as far as accomplishments, I don't think, I look back on it and I tell a lot of my young proteges, I think I have 14, maybe 15 now, that folks that worked under me that are ADs around the country. And always said to them, there's only really one reason to be in this industry. It's not because of any notoriety. It's certainly not going to be because you got to get on TV and explain why your team got in a fight or things of that nature. It's never going to be about that. It's always going to be about the interaction, the relationship, the shepherding of young people from one station in life to another. And being part of that journey will without question always be the greatest accomplishment I ever got to benefit from and participate in. And the thing I really value and cherish the most was all of that. Thousands of young people being part of their lives. It's validated because day by day I still get texts, emails, LinkedIn's, everything from around the country from these young people because you were part of their lives. Nothing gets better than that.
Well said, Rick. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time.
Thank you. Nice seeing everyone. Happy New Year.
Thank you, Barney. Thank you, Rick. On behalf of everyone here, thank you for taking time to speak with us today. It's some great stories come out of the football program this year, especially Zaven Collins, you mentioned earlier. I know the basketball team has a big game tonight against Houston. So we all cheer for your continued success along with the University of Tulsa in the coming years. Thank you again.
Thank you all. Thanks for having me.
Now I want to turn it over to Hannibal Johnson, our past president, for an inspirational moment. Past President Hannibal.
So for today's inspirational moment, I thought I would do something tied to the centennial commemoration of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. I do a lot of speaking around the country on this rich history. And one of the things I often share is an exchange of letters between two friends in the immediate wake of the massacre. These letters were written between a fellow named Curtis, who lived in Detroit. And again, right after the massacre, he was writing to his dear friend here in Tulsa, whose name was Oliver. So just listen to the letters. Dear Oliver, I am by our local newspaper fully advised of the whole terrible tragedy there. Now that they have destroyed your homes, wrecked your schools, reduced your business places to ashes, and killed your people, I am sure that you will rapidly give up the town and move north. Enclosed, please find a draft for $40 to purchase your ticket to Detroit. We'll be expecting you, Curtis. And the reply is as follows. Dear Curtis, how kind of you to volunteer your sympathetic assistance. It's just like you to be helpful to others in times of stress like these. True it is, we are facing a terrible situation. It is equally true that they have destroyed our homes, they've wrecked our schools, they've reduced our churches to ashes, and they have murdered our people, Curtis. But they have not touched our spirit. And while I speak only for myself, let it be said that I came here and built my fortune with that spirit. I shall reconstruct it here with that spirit, and I expect to live on and die here with it. Oliver. So Oliver is a reminder of the indomitable human spirit that was endemic in the Greenwood community in 1921, but well beyond there. What we're commemorating on the anniversary, May 31st and June 1st, is not simply the massacre. It really is more about the community in which the massacre occurred, the people who built a remarkable community and sustained it over time. Oliver is reflective of those people.
Thank you, Past President Hannibal, for that inspirational moment. It's now Sarge time. I'll turn it over to our Sarge, Carl Vincent. Sarge?
Well, President Paul, you know, one of the things I miss most about live meetings, President Paul, is John Halland's socks. And I know John's on the meeting. I can't see your socks right now, John, but I'm imagining they're spectacular. So Sarge time today. Being Sarge on a day like today is kind of interesting, but we've got some good finds here. Let's see, President Paul, we're back to another round of Rotary Wood Squares. And let's see who's first up on Rotary Wood Squares today. This one's a little tough for me. This is the most difficult find we've received, but I am grateful that Bryant Bynum recognized past President Tim this week with a contribution to the Rotary Club of Tulsa. How appropriate that is in my mind. And to those of you out there who might be considering something in memory of Tim, whether it comes through me as Sarge or whether it just goes directly to the Rotary Club of Tulsa Foundation, I can't think of a more fitting way to recognize Tim Colwell's service and in memoriam to him. Bryant, thank you for your contribution. You know, I've known Bryant Bynum since I was 19 years old as a student at Oral Roberts University. Bryant was there also, and he's one of the brightest guys I've ever had the pleasure of knowing. He can manipulate numbers like no other. Bryant, thank you for this find. Let's see how that looks on the Rotary Wood Squares. President Paul, you got a square in the upper right. What have we got next here? Let's see. Oh, it's a birthday. Don Woolsey sent us $90 in recognition of a birthday. I'm not sure if the dollar amount is directly aligned with the number of years he's celebrating, but I do know that Don has been a member of our Rotary Club since 1976. Barney, do you remember the bicentennial in our nation? Well, that's the year that Don joined, and he's retired from the plate glass industry. Don, we appreciate your membership in our club and your contribution for your birthday. Thank you so much. This third one is real special, President Paul. You got two marks there on the Rotary Wood Squares. Bob Sade stepped up with a fine for $1,000 to celebrate the 75th anniversary of Sade music. What a remarkable achievement in this day and age of companies changing and turning. Bob's dad was such a vibrant member of our club, and past President Linda did such a great job recognizing him at our last meeting. But Bob, we're real grateful for you. Thank you for this recognition. And I know your dad would be proud of the way you've handled Sade music in the last years. So thank you for that contribution and your participation in our Rotary Club. You know, President Paul, get to the end of the presentation, I wanted to ask you if it looked like anything was wrong maybe with my camera. I don't know. Is my Zoom camera working okay, President Paul?
Well, when you get that close to the camera, you look a little older, but other than that, the video looks fine. Thanks for President Paul.
I
don't write all this material. I just repeat some of it. Sorry.
I'm wondering if it was our camera that made Hannibal's hair look like it did at our last Sarge. Anyway, thank you all. If any of you would care to make an additional contribution to the Rotary Club Foundation in memory of Tim Colwell, we'd sure love to help with those. And if you have any other finds, we're grateful to receive those and we'll present them accordingly. Thank you, President Paul.
Thank you, Sarge. We appreciate you taking on the effort of raising funds for our club foundation this year. You're doing a great job and appreciate you being a sport and letting us poke some fun at you sometimes. So, thank you. Special thanks to this week's sponsors, Terracon, Mike Holman, Paul Estel, John O'Connor, Tom Klinda, Daniel Ketchum, Ameritrust Corporation, Harvey Rowe, One Gas, Robert Babcock, Mr. Ed's Auction, Ed Vierheller. Thank you for joining our meeting today. Our next Rotary meeting will be noon on Wednesday, February 3rd. I hope you have a great rest of your day and week. The last Dr. King quote that I wanted to share at the end of our meeting today is, he said, "I have learned this art. When I have nothing more to say, I stop talking." And with that, we are adjourned.